Going to taverns is a huge part of Dungeons & Dragons, so we decided to create an entire guild that the party can join to facilitate their tavern-going, shenanigan-doing, beverage-drinking way of life. But merely gifting the party admission to this brewery guild would be boring. In turn, we created a wildly elaborate initiation process which involves rousing improvised roleplay scenarios, a unique filled mug transporting combat encounter, and of course, drinking. Lots and lots of drinking. I made a separate video discussing how we created the concept for the guild and what its role in the campaign is as a whole. But the synopsis is the Brute Tongue Guild are looking to make an official list of the best drinks around the world, and the players are attempting to become adorned testers, where they'll report to the guild the quality of the various crickety-cray drinks they've drank while bouncing from town to town, tavern to tavern. This is all a PR ploy though, as the list is really a way for the Brute Tongue to get their grubby little hands on the secret recipes of the world's best drinks, meaning some of these testers are actually going to be corporate spies. With all that in mind, the question we're focusing on today is how did the Brute Tongue decide to pick the party for this role? Well, before this initiation quest became the significant enterprise it would end as, it had humble beginnings. I think what we could maybe do for how the party get qualified is we could just start super simple. We could just start with like a testing competition in town. So the monastic brewery, I think, can be pretty open about the fact, you know, they're doing a lot of PR stunts. They're trying to like publicize like, oh, we're creating this competition because, you know, they need it to be popular so it actually has like weight. You know, so they could be like holding in town or in their sort of brewery wine tasting competitions to see like, oh, who has the most sort of palated tongue when it comes to alcoholic beverages? Are people maybe more discerning or distinguishing? And if they are, then they can become qualified testers that they can go out into the world and can be trusted to report back on the best drinks. But we can expand that out. We can have like drink testing as one of it. I think it can be a 3-stage test. So I think stage 1 can be drinks testing. I think it could also be fun if they want like adventurers who are hardy and strong so that they know are going to be able to travel from town to town. So there could be like a small combat, and then there could be like a third thing, which could maybe be like a charisma test, right? Because if they are creating these testers to be spies, they might do like a disposition test to see like, oh, if we hire you, are you able to very eloquently go into a tavern, you know, high five the owners or whatever, but schmooze your way in so you are able to get possibly the secret recipes for these top tier beverages. So those, I think, we're going to do the 3 initiation quests. There's going to be a drinks test, a combat/obstacle course test. We'll figure that out when we get to it. And then sort of a charisma tavern test. These would transform and evolve as we went, but the overarching motive was to have the trials test the different skills a traveling drink tester/espionaging corporate ne'er-do-well would need to have. Before we'd focus on trial 1, the drinking contest, we'd quickly discuss the atmosphere of the event, its impact on the city, and even delve into a little bit of the justification for why the party would be drawn to joining. They arrive in Silverport City, and having sort of this enormous festival of sorts that's being put on to be able to become an official tester of this competition, I think can be like a city-wide event. Everybody's sort of getting into it. So when they get there, you know, they can see people like running around, they can see like festive vibes and posters about it. And it can just like spark their interest in people being like, oh, are you guys gonna compete in the like thing that's going on in this city? And I think that'll also make it feel a bit more special for the 1 or 2 people that are sort of picked for this. We'd amplify this even further, making the trials filled with thousands and thousands of people competing for these illustrious spots. The in-world logistics would break this down into much easier, smaller chunks, blocks of qualifiers each containing 50 people, a number which will whittle down as the rounds of the trials progress. Despite the enormous number of participants, to make selection into the guild even more special, we decided this opportunity would probably be at its best if it was really just for 1, maybe 2 players. I think something that could really like add to this is like standardly what you might do is basically like everyone gets into the guild, but really having it as a sort of a competition to get in where maybe only 1 or 2 members of the party are able to get in. And this way, this specific like character plot is really like shaped around 1 person. And maybe we could do a couple people so others aren't getting necessarily ostracized, but this could be a good situation to just like allow one person's character to flourish and grow and develop. If the idea was to have only 1 or 2 players getting their brute tongue certification badges, then we'd need to consider 2 things. Firstly, how do we make it a situation where the rest of the party are still involved in the session and aren't just vibing on the bench watching a particular player have a nice one-on-one session with the DM? And secondly, how do we create the scenario where only 1 or 2 people are chosen? To quickly answer question 1, we'd just create trials and narratively have it be a situation where the party are able to participate in all of them even if they don't actually intend to be in the guild. Coolio. Now let's slightly longerly answer question 2. Why are only 1 or 2 people chosen? Basically, the narrative dictates from each qualification block only 2 competitors maximum will be selected. Although this can obviously vary depending on how many of the party truly want to get selected. But the party competing against themselves or the concept of others is sort of lame. So to represent the other competitors, we'd create a rival party and specifically a rival NPC which they are directly competing against. So we could have this like rival NPC party, and then we could have, say, like one of the NPCs be like particularly good, and they're really, the party are just competing. Do they either get 1 spot, because we still want at least 1 person to get in, and then the rival NPC is competing for that 2nd spot. So is there 2 characters that get in, or does the rival NPC get in? I think that's what we're gonna do. Now, if only 1 person is really going for the role, then I think having only 1 spot up for grabs would work better to build that ever-desired tension and sense of stakes. We'd expand out this rival NPC's role later, but for now, we'd really focus on the first of our challenges. After messing around with a few ideas, we'd land on a speed drinking competition where the trialers are told they need to drink 5 drinks as fast as possible. While the speed of consumption may be noted by the guild, this isn't the real test, as the brute tongue are just trying to get the participants drunk to A, cull the lightweights from the pack, and B, to see how they are able to do the job while drunk. This is when good old-fashioned dice rolling would sidle on up and come into play, as we needed a way to calculate how fast people are drinking these drinks, and we'd go with Ruin Mirage's awesome suggestion from chat. Add the total of the 5 drinks and subtract their constitution modifier plus dex modifier. Yeah, that's sick. I fucking love that. And that's definitely like much more interesting than a survival check. PU. I also like that from the context that it's like the lower number the better, which is like totally different in D&D. It's always, you know, higher number better. Boring. Let's change it up. Let's go lower equal better. So I think that's a sick idea. We'd rework this slightly and have it be 2d8 minus the player's survival modifier, determining the time taken to sumptuously guzzle each drink, meaning this is rolled 5 times. I wanted to slyly slide survival into the mix because it's a slept-on check that doesn't get much love. And throughout this quest, we'd really turn to a smorgasbord of skill checks just to make the whole procedure a little bit more loosey-goosey. Despite the speed not really mattering, I wanted to give a reward to whoever in the competition drank the fastest. Having a reward where there's just free drinks would also encourage like lots of people who don't even like want to do the like actual job of going town to town to specifically compete in like this part of the competition. Because it's like, if you heard that like, hey, if you can scull 5 drinks incredibly quickly, you'll get free drinks for a year, or maybe like the most famous bar or tavern where you live, you're like, A, that's 5 free drinks right off the bat, cool. But B, if I manage to succeed in a competition of 25, so there's not that many people, I could get free drinks. So that would also lead this to having like thousands of competitors, because they're not thousands of people competing for this role. There's a bunch of people, but a lot of the people are just competing for the free drinks. This is also when we can bring back up, or more likely introduce, our rival NPC, because unless one player rolls really well, this is the perfect time to have someone who isn't the party shine and prove themselves as a real threat. It's also a good opportunity to have the rival NPC gas up the crowd and become a vocal fan favorite. This brings us to the actual point of this test, drunkenness. What could they roll to test drunkenness? And I've also I know people use exhaustion and stuff. I would love like a better D&D homebrew drunkenness system. Homebrew drunkenness system. And maybe we even invent one now. Because I feel like getting drunk and just using exhaustion or using poison is like, well, this is maybe good. In essence, yeah, it was good, really good. So we'd just sort of take it and then make some small modifications to it to make it more specific to our quest. Huge shout out to Militant Lobster for creating it. Now, I'm not going to fully explain the system or anything, as it works pretty much like you think it might. When the party drink, they make a con save to see if they progress to the next stage of drunkenness. Each stage of drunkenness provides a unique set of advantages and disadvantages, with the ultimate stage being passing out. This is perfect, as we want the players competing to be really drunk, and having a fun mix of buffs and debuffs might help or hinder their progress through the following trials. With a mathematical formula and a description table for drunkenness in the books, we move to trial 2, the disposition test, something that tests the charisma and role-playing chops of the players. An important quality for people who are meant to be spies, but also something that I think fits the role of rousing, boisterous brewery guild member. It's like a role-play scenario where we go through like each of the different charisma checks. And it's like a conversation where it's like, you looking a little bit tipsy and the bartender's considering cutting you off. Persuade them to give you another drink. And then they like have to roll their persuasion of, oh, bartender, I may have a few in me, but when drinks are this delicious, how could I ever stop drinking them? And they roll persuasion and they go from there. And the same thing with, all the different checks. And I think that could be like fun to bring a charisma element into this. We ended up writing out 2 scenarios. These scenarios basically describe a night out, each role being a unique situation on that night out, accompanied by a 1 or 2 sentence prompt where the player then has to act out a quick scene with the DM. Some of them would be simple, like using intimidation to get out of a fight. But I think someone could be like, hey, what are you doing? This is my tavern. You think you could come in here and get everybody on your side? I'm Mickey D's, baby, and I'm gonna make you feel D's fists as I punch in your face. And then you make an intimidation check to be like, nah. While some would have crazier prompts. Lights go out and come back on. There's been a murder. That's almost, whoa! That's like you just throw it. What if this became a murder mystery? Staged, of course. And you're making a deception check of like, oh, I didn't do it, sir. I swear I killed nobody. But you did. You were the murderer. This would change slightly to become providing a distraction so your friend can murder, then covering it up with deception. But either way, we wanted to create a system that was both roleplay and role-play, catering to both people that like to really characterize and get into it, and so people who just like to roll dice can also feel comfortable as well. And then NPCs like, no, a murder's afoot, murder! Darius, what do you know of this? You are being so loud and boisterous. Do you know anything? Oh, me? But I was just merely trying to amp everyone up. And then you can have like a full scene, if so wish. But this also caters to people who are maybe less into role-playing. Like, I know my party are gonna fucking froth the shit out of this. They're gonna wanna do this till the cows come home. Now, while I wrote these to be one person to make sure that the party involved, these trial scenes could easily play out with the whole party involved. Maybe the main person going for it just acts as the face. Either way, it kind of makes sense that the guild would want to see how the whole party can act in situations, even if only one of them becomes an official brute tongue drink tester, because the whole party will be going from tavern to tavern accompanying their official tester. Leaving the stage behind, it was back to the bottle and on to actual testing of beverages. So I think that's cool. I think what we can do is like maybe the discernment process can be a series of 3 checks. Like one could be discerning whether the player can identify the ingredients, and that's a nature check. One is a survival of experimental drinks. If the party are going to be testing all these different drinks, then they need to see if they can survive them, right? If some of them are a bit more fucking hardcore. What can be the skill associated? You know what? It's a monastic brewery. I think it doesn't really make any sense, but it would be fun if it's intelligence. But not intelligence, religion. It's like a religion check to see if they themselves can take these like wholly new invented drinks. I think that's what we're going to do just because it's a little dumb. Religion. The test to discern ingredients and the test to see if the player can denote good drinks from bad drinks would be adjudicated by the classic rolling of a d20 dice, then associating it with a specific skill from their Dungeons & Dragons character sheet. An oldie, but a goodie. Similarly, but not really similarly at all, the idea that the monks make a special religious brew was rife for narrativization. This special brew would be a test to tell the drinker's connection to the god that the monks commune with. I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but this is a monastic brewery run by monks, one who all praise an alcohol god. While this providence test is important as the brewery needs to expand and specifically needs testers in the field, this isn't a pivotal factor like it may be during the standard initiation of monks. Or disciplined enough physically, hence the qualifying rounds. Yeah. Like I think they need to pass all the like in-world tangible checks, right? They need to be able to like not get fucked up drunk, that they're like incapacitated. They need to be able to like go to a bar and like be a good time and spread the word of the competition, because if they, once again, it's a PR stunt, they're trying to like build up the status of this place. So they need people who are like going to be able to do that. Then they need people who can actually discern the drinks, but they also need people who like are religiously associated. But that's maybe like just one aspect rather than the pivotal. How well the players pass this test may be more important for how the other monks treat them once they join the guild. It's also an opportunity for tomfoolery. How will they confirm that the divine message is correct and they're not lying? I mean, I think that's a good point. I think they can't confirm or deny. I mean, it's faith, right? It's God. So if the person is like fucking going through it and they can like feel themselves dying and they're like, I hear the word of God transcending through me, and they roll really high on their deception check, maybe they convince the monks, right? But if there is this like physiological component to it, like they kind of get fucked up, anaphylactic shock style, if they roll badly, and then they like maybe are more galvanized and look like totally fine if they roll really well and have a divine moment, then the monks can kind of tell that way. But I like the idea of the party being able to deceive, right? There's that opportunity for failure, but deception. This would bring us to our last trial, a combat of sorts. Way back in the beginning, I thought it would be a lark to make the combat an obstacle course. Later, this idea became a tavern brawl, but it would end up evolving into a much more complex encounter, which involves filling up mugs with beer, then transporting them to your team's side. All the while, the other team is trying to do the same thing, and both of you are trying to prevent the other from achieving this mutual goal. The rules for this encounter are entirely unique and an absolute hijink, especially when you consider that the characters are likely incredibly drunk while doing it. All this gets its own video though. And while I considered having this be a 1v1, and it certainly could be, I thought once again that might be boring for the members of the party who aren't participating. So we tweaked the rules and made the encounter something that the whole party are involved with. Something that once again makes sense because the guild probably wants to see how the specific individuals they're testing work with the people that they're going to be traveling with. As far as who this rival NPC is exactly, I wouldn't as of yet give them a particular personality. Instead, I think this character would be at their best if you just see who in the party is most keen to actually get this specific role and then base the characterization of them off that. Either making them a classic foil, giving them antagonistic or opposing traits to the person who's going for the role, or you make them highly similar to the particular player, something which may work well if the rivalry is more fun and playful and the two become friends after they both get accepted into the guild. And that's the completion of our Brewery Guild Initiation Quest. I'm really happy with how this turned out. It's one of those cases where I thought I'll make a simple guild and tried to extend it out with fun quirks and engaging questing if possible. But how much can we really do? Then with help of chat, it became way bigger, way more detailed, and way more fun than what I thought it would be, which is amazing. I'm really happy with the guild as a whole, and I think all of these trials are individually interesting, provide great roleplay opportunities, and have a great narrative backing, which should make the whole thing a blasterama. If you want access to the quest document or the maps we made for this quest, or you just want to support the channel, then jump on the Patreon where I have every quest and map I've ever made. I also individually have quests and maps available on Etsy. Subscribe for more D&D content creation, go on the Twitch to do this stuff live. Thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye!